This actually reminded me of another case. Wait, hold on. I didn't have any tobacco in my lungs.
Really long for no reason.
That seems just like air. Okay, here we go.
This actually reminds me of a case.
Oh.
When I was an old gumshoe, I remember following those guys.
It's a gumshoe.
Wait,
can see
what does
that.
that mean?
I never knew about
It's like a
this.
junior detective, right?
And now he's just drinking some whiskey straight out of the flask.
You're driving.
You guys ever heard of the Jeff Davis 8?
Sounds like a kind of a prog rock thing. Or
Yeah, kind of, progressive, jazzy
I
sort
can
of
see
feel.
that.
Chicago.
Actually, you're right. That does sound
Little
like that.
shuffle beat going on into some, some Moog keyboards.
like a
I'm
way
digging.
lamer Chicago.
Yeah,
Yacht rock.
Also, how long have I been driving?
the whole time.
Dude, give me the whiskey.
Okay.
Enough
I don't like
whiskey.
it. You're not-
enough.
I'll pull
He's
over.
actually not even using the steering wheel. He's smoking with one hand and drinking out of the other.
I'll
Just doing the
I'll pull
knees?
over.
He's doing the knee thing, and it's not working out
That's
at all.
your
It's like
It's making me
this
car sick.
scary uncle thing. Yeah, you don't want that. Like,
I don't like
It is a
it.
scary uncle thing
It
to drive
is,
that
it
way.
is.
It really is.
Here's a bit of a warning from Fort Fritz. This story deals with sexually explicit crimes against women, especially people in powerless positions. So listener discretion is advised as we deal with this very sensitive subject. Per the Rolling Stone article I'm basing the story on, I feel compelled to go ahead and use their opening sentence because it's awesome. It's going to set the tone for this entire story. Quote, "The details of the Jeff Davis 8 murders are so incredible and so quintessentially Bayou that if they were fiction,
What?
they'd seem a little heavy-handed," unquote. And I always like to say,
Nice.
if something doesn't smell right, but it's the absolute truth, I like to say, if you wrote this and handed it to Hollywood, they would have you rewrite it and say, not believable.
Wow.
Nice.
So I was like, ooh, that's really good.
Quintessential Bayou.
Yeah. This all goes down. Local police, this was from 2005 to 2019, were disturbed, but not too much, and I will get into that later, by the disappearance and murders of multiple victims, all women, all of whom worked in the solicitation and prostitution trade. Each woman came from a poor background. They were destitute, or they had criminal histories. They lived in the wrong part of town, so to speak. Their criminal histories were petty violations, petty theft, to like hardcore substance abuse, like caught with multiple grams of a Schedule 1. I don't really know, but probably not marijuana. They were all from South Jennings, which was not the best part of town. And they were all killed in various manners. Some were strangled. Some were probably given hot shots of, mixed drugs.
what's a hot shot?
A hot shot is like way too much heroin, way too much cocaine, all in one shot.
It's like a straight up OD shot?
Yeah, exactly. Like right into the blood-brain barrier, and it's going to shut everything down or have you, seize and things like that. Ethan Brown was the author and private investigator who initially garnered attention for this story. He did this through a New York Times story he published in 2010. But he was responsible for blowing this up on the national level. He goes on to state, quote, "All 8 of the victims snitched for local law enforcement about the Jennings drug trade." So they were informants. Okay. Jennings is, I don't want to say parish because they say Jefferson Davis Parish. And Jefferson Davis, anyone know who he was?
President, right?
Of what?
The Confederacy. Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you.
This case is still unsolved to this day. So does this sound familiar? Bayou, Gumbo Gothic. I think we can say it's what beloved HBO show.
Sounds like True Detective, right?
It does. It sounds just like True Detective. Without any specific story in mind, Ethan Brown traveled to Louisiana to talk with the local population just to see what he could find. He had, I guess, several weeks off, or maybe he...
Got some PTO stored up. You're like, hey, I'm going to go solve 8 murders in the bayou.
or
As a lark.
I like that. Just for a laugh.
But what he found immediately was suspect at best. He befriended a drug dealer known as Bowlegs.
Oh, yeah.
Bowlegs.
Nice.
Bowlegs,
Bowlegs, yeah.
who earned that nickname after receiving a shotgun blast to the legs.
Nice.
Fun.
He dated 2 of the eventual 8 victims. And curiously, was found dead the very next day after
Really?
Mr. Brown interviewed him.
Oh, well, interesting.
He drove to the crime scene. He was shocked by what he saw. Bowlegs had been shot to death in his home. There was no established perimeter, duly noted by officials, no crime scene, with bystanders just freely fucking about through the residence.
Just wandering about, checking it out.
Trampling on the crime scene.
This is Boleg's place, huh? Like, where is he?
Some even taking murderabilia with them. Yeah, like pouring out the beer.
What?
Over the blood, going, Boleg! This is for you,
We miss you, baby.
Look, I found a casing. Can I take it home?
Quick quiz. Does this sound like a police force that has any idea what's going on or how they can control anything, or does it seem suspect?
It seems
How
like
much
they're
time
letting
have-
it be corrupted.
Yeah.
How much time have you spent in the bayou? Because they're probably not, like, you
You
know
spend a
what?
lot of time in the bayou, Kaz.
You know what? More than your average bear. More
Do
than
they just
probably
kind
I
of
can
let
see
things
that.
happen
I can-
as they should
more
just
than 3 of you
happen?
guys. There's a...
More than your average bear. In fact, more than your average swamp bear.
That's a scary swamp bear.
That's what it does, man. All
Sounds
day.
very
That's your new nickname,
swamp bear. Yeah, I mean, that
You're my
fits,
little
I
swamp bear, Kaz.
Wow.
guess. Aw.
For multiple years, Ethan Brown is traveling down there, repeated trips. He's questioning those who are personally, private, and intimately involved with these victims. And then thanks to the Louisiana Open Public Records, I guess they have one of the best in the entire world as far as what you can request access to.
Transparency.
He acquired a boatload of evidence, thousands of different files. Many of the reports named the now defunct Boudreaux Inn, and that was a hotel, like a headquarters for pimps and prostitutes to score drugs and johns for the night. So it was like a win-win. Rampant misconduct, and very early on concluded the obvious. This was not a serial killing, but instead an investigation so poorly handled, it was criminal in the fact that it was just rotting. Nothing was being done. So because of that, things were just happening around this.
Oh, man.
Around this time, Brown was surprised to see a trailer for a new HBO show set in Louisiana based around unsolved murders.
Oh.
So he titled his story, Who Killed the Jeff Davis 8? With the subtitle, An Investigation into a Real-Life True Capital Detective Case.
Oh, wow.
Brilliantly done. He published that in the New York Times. It was a very, very small article. A book deal soon followed.
Ah, boom.
Nicely
Here's
done,
where
Ethan
things...
Brown.
It's all timing.
Right? Here's where things get dumb. Sheriff Ivy Woods of the Jefferson Davis Parish published a memo that reads like a character assassination of Mr. Brown. In the memo, he says, quote, Kaz was right. That was not in quotes.
He resents Kaz?
I resent out-of-town journalists trying to paint our parish with a broad brush that insinuates we are corrupt, unquote. Kaz was absolutely right. And also, this confusing line, quote, it is unfortunate out-of-town journalists are taking information and twisting it to support a fictional conspiracy theory to gain followers and sell a story, unquote.
Oh, yeah. People always accuse people of that.
It just at the end, he adds fame and you think he's doing this for fucking fame and fortune?
Yeah.
He interviewed someone who died the next day.
Yeah.
Who dated 2 of the 8 victims. Mm-hmm. That to me is just really stupid. From the desk of Sheriff Woods, and that's jdpso.org, jdpso.org. The local Jennings newspaper, who was Mr. Brown's ally for most of his research, did a 180 and roasted him in the press, publishing attacks against him. But the paper wouldn't return emails, they wouldn't return calls, and one of his allies at the press team confided in a professional and friendly way his book would never be published. So why is an author going down here, finding the story out, and no one is returning his calls? Because of the Louisiana Public Records file, he was actually able to find out who owned the Boudreaux Inn. And this is really cool. The Boudreaux Inn was operated by people in high-ranking political circles, specifically Congressman Charles Bostany. His name was brought up in several conversations. So through this inquest, Brown found that Martin P. Gullery, a representative, a representative for Bostany was listed as the co-owner. Now, he's not saying they had anything to do with this, but these 2 high-ranking politicians owned a hotel that was always brought up when these 8 murders happened, and the police chief isn't doing
Jack shit.
from an outsider's perspective, sure, right? But yeah, I don't know.
Well, and he's also penning these snarky fucking op-eds in the I would be the best arch villain of all time because I would shut my
How so?
fucking mouth.
Right.
I wouldn't get in the newspaper and be like, well, you out of town newspaper. Like, hey, we're supporting the investigation any way we can. We're going to help him out. Please continue to check it out. And then you kill him on the side and, his car veers off the road or something.
Like Gus
Yeah.
in Breaking Bad.
Sure.
Thank you. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the new thing now is
Who
that
is Chilean,
used
by
to
the
be innocent
Nice.
people would be like, I'm innocent. Yeah, you can investigate me, whatever. Now innocent people are like, I've got nothing to hide, but you can't see anything.
Right.
I mean, it's
like,
the
chill,
most
be
bizarre
cool.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
just if you're
Just
innocent.
Act like you've been here,
be
man.
cool.
Yeah. act like this isn't your first rodeo. Just to clarify, he does not. He concludes by saying he doesn't know what happened,
Right.
but he did all of this.
Because he wanted
There's
to
a
get
lot of
disappeared.
fuckery.
Again, Louisiana, and props to Louisiana. Like I've never ever said that, and will ever say it again. I've never
Doom
heard
and
that.
gloom for the future of Louisiana and Vibes
Louis-
of Fritz.
I've
Louisi-
never said that. I can't believe I just did.
Oh my god!
And
Yeah,
never again.
I felt really dirty. But Louisiana, if they have these really awesome public access records, why didn't the police note that in any kind of report?
Is it more of like a sunshine law thing? Like,
I don't know because again, I was basing that just off that awesome RollingStone.com article, and when I first looked it up, I thought all of the 8 women killed, they were attractive women. They didn't look like they had any kind of nefarious background. So
wait,
number
so
one,
only unattractive women can have nefarious backgrounds?
no.
You
Well-
haven't met the nefarious women I've met.
when you think of people who are scoring drugs in a hotel who are sex workers, they did not, in your mind, fit that mold, whatever that may be. They were really good-looking women.
God
From
damn
no,
it, man.
let me finish.
I
because, yeah,
can't stress how hot these chicks were.
I'm not bidding. No money. Their families were fucking dead broke, so they were used as pawns. That's why I wanted to say that. They were really good-looking women who didn't have shit, especially their name. They could all be blackmailed. They all had a prior criminal record, so they were pawns. So
And
they
who was
decided
preying
to
on them?
become police informants,
How old were they? Did you get the age range?
varying from 24 to 36.
Okay.
But do you think that?
I think actually the youngest was 19.
Wow.
So do you think that the police were involved in covering up the crimes? Do you think the police were involved with the prostitution side of things, or do you think it was just a big heady mess of crap?
I don't think anything like that can be even talked about because I feel like Ethan Brown's life would be put at stake. I think that's why True Detective literally didn't. They sidestepped the issue at all of who actually was the bad guy. They made it this nebulous society.
Right.
We've
And
had
I think they
stories
had
like
to
this in
do
the
that.
past. We've had stories like this in the past where there's just like, oh, we're just.
And I'm not even going to comment on it. I'm not even going to say because if I say something, the pro police fans that we have, and Jesus Christ, they're out there every day. That's not my fight. You might come after me, or the anti-police crowd might come after me, or the pro-military, anti-military, or the journalists suck, fake news, free speech. It's like you can't even comment on this. It's just something shitty that happened, and it probably smells. So there probably is corruption.
A lot of smoke.
Right.
But he published a book and he had no answers in it. And I
fact that
think that's fascinating.
There was a high-ranking government
Yeah.
official who was, let's not call it the proprietor, but like had ties to this straight-up pimp motel. Like you said, starts to stink a little bit.
It's also really easy to say in the case of Bowlegs, who was killed in his home. When we got there, it was already a contaminated crime scene. We couldn't do further investigation. Remember, he got there and that's what he saw.
That's
so
crazy.
The first police on the scene might have been like, open up the door and was like, oh my God, hey guys, Bowlegs is dead. I've never seen so much blood.
Come in here, check it out. Touch everything you can.
Right. Dance in
Mess
the
with
blood.
them. Yeah.
Yes.
If you have any
dance
stray
in it.
bullets, just throw those around just to confuse everybody.
Now all of these files are all over the fucking place. Thank you.
Hey,
Man,
We were
Daddy.
trying to
I was
figure
trying
out
to do one of those things.